All right, thanks, Nate. Hey, everybody. If you are watching this video, you're probably considering either leading a group at Eastside or are already leading one. But what this video is going to do is give you an overview of what it looks like to be a group leader here at Eastside. Just got a few questions for you to consider is, should I be a leader for a small group? And this first training video is going to go over just a few questions to see if this is something that you would like to continue to pursue. The first question we want you to consider is, have you led a group before? And if you haven't, it's not a deal breaker by any means. This is just how we get started. And it doesn't have to be done perfectly, but we want to inform and influence you and inspire you as much as we can so that you've got the best leg up moving forward. Getting into relationships with people outside of a church context where you're on the grounds, even if you're on the grounds, but in one of the classrooms down the hallway, if you're on site, or if you're in a home or wherever you do meet or have your fellowship, you have to ask yourself a question is, are you ready for those kinds of relationships when you're in your own home? Or if you're hosting in someone else's home or you're here on site, but it's kind of gone beyond the superficial and hopefully leaning in towards more authentic communication with other Christians. And that's the goal. The goal is relationships. You want to be in an environment, everybody does, where names are known and you're needed, you feel needed, where ministry happens and where people are genuinely loved and tangibly cared for. That's the kind of group we look at. But also as well, the vision piece, a big part to do with that is we want these to become really missional communities that learn how to serve together, that go on missions teams together, that serve on serve teams together here at the church and just getting involved in the life of the city. So that's the question, is that something that you'd like to be a part of? And don't feel like you have to jump off the high dive first. This might just be something where you're saying, I want to get a group of people together and we want to look at the weekend message and just use it as an excuse for fellowship. That is absolutely perfect. And if that's the kind of group that you end up leading, just know we understand that it's going to take on the different shapes and sizes of that person who is in leadership and the people that end up becoming a part of your group. So it can be low-key, it can be just fellowship, it can be an affinity group where you maybe go bowling, every other week, or whatever that may be. Maybe you meet at a coffee shop on a Monday afternoon. Maybe you're meeting in your mind's eye like Sunday evening or Sunday afternoon because we have kids, or we want to meet on site so we don't have to worry about childcare and things like that. And there's a lot of different options that we have. But have you ever led a group before? The next one is, are you ready to lead? And if you've ever been affirmed as a leader, that's probably a good indicator. If you've had someone point out to you and say, you know what, I could see you actually kind of taking charge on something. And if you're not a natural born leader, we want you to know I'm one of them. I'm not a natural born leader by any stretch. I've had to learn how to grow in my leadership as the years have gone by. And we know and are fully informed that might be your story too. Everybody's got to get a start somewhere. So don't let that be the thing that stops you from considering being a group leader. But I really do want to focus on that. If you have been affirmed by a leader that, hey, you should look into leading, that's a big thing for us. If you haven't, don't let it stop you. But we want you to be aware that that's always a good sign. And just because you haven't had it, maybe you've just been kind of a sleeper for years and God is kind of grooming you into this next season of life where He's going to affirm you in some areas that you may have not been affirmed in yet. So keep that open. Do you have people in mind already that you would like to have in your group? If you haven't started one, but you're thinking, yeah, I'd like to start one, I've got this person in mind, go ahead and recruit. We want to see that from our leaders, is that you have the ability to call people to you and to expand your own circle. So if you've got a handful of people that you're already thinking about, we're going to outfit you. The next few videos are going to show you a few key tools that we want you to be fully acclimated with within the next few months. and we're not trying to make the work any harder on you. These tools that we've created are actually going to make it easier for you to lead. So you don't have to do any of this other stuff. Just focus on leading your group, and we're going to give you the tools that we think are going to be necessary for it. Of course, there's some flexibility in that as well, but we don't want you to have any excuse to say, well, I don't have time to prepare this. We're going to prepare everything we possibly can to where you just show up and take care of it. And if you go to a service on the weekend or you watch online, then you've done the homework. If you plan on this being a group that studies, we would prefer in this first phase to just keep it about the weekend message. That doesn't mean in time that we can't move out, and as you're growing in your leadership and we see certain things and your trust is expanding with us and ours with you, is we want to be able to give you that freedom to study certain things. Study's a big part of it. But through the years, it's so easy for a group, a small group, a community group to become a glorified Bible study. There is nothing wrong with studying the Bible, and we encourage it. Absolutely. That is a large part, a critical part of our fellowship together. So we hope that it is that. We also realize there are groups just made for fellowship. That's okay too. Our goal is to get you into the Word, but for this first phase, we want to take this first 6 to 12 months and just focus on the weekend messages. We're going to give you a guide so that you're fully prepared to have a group. And if you watch the service online or are a part of a worship experience, you're ready to go. And if the people in your group went, everybody's ready, and just encourage them. Take notes and bring your questions or quotes or your comments. We've been blessed. Pastor Fred is an incredible communicator. And we've gotten so much information that we can cut through and expand upon, and we just want to encourage you with that. Do you have people in mind already that you'd like to be in a group? If you're an existing group already, this wouldn't necessarily apply to you. Here's the next question is when, where, and how often will your group meet? Is it weekly? Sunday afternoons? Friday evenings? 1 hour, no childcare? Try to whittle that down. A wise pastor, Rick Warren, once said, "We don't reach who we want as much as we reach who we are." You're going to attract people that you have some commonality, some shared values together. And a lot of it has to do with just plain old chemistry. And there are going to be people that are attracted to you for a number of different reasons. But if you feel like there's a person that is kind of just outside of that, we're going to try to cover everybody with multiple ways, multiple environments conducive for relationships. So just try to get the people around you, if you're building a team, that have a natural connection with you, but don't allow that to be the only thing. And leave some room open for God to bring somebody into your group that maybe you look at and go, I don't know about this one. There's some growth in that for you as well as a leader. So we want you to have a great experience with a group, but just know this, it's hard, and you've got to count the cost, because God is going to send you some people that you don't have the grace in you to cover. But there are going to be some others that are EGRs. I'm sure you've heard that term, the extra grace required. They're in every small group. Don't let that stop you. It is really there by design. And in time, we want to leave what's called the open chair principle, where if you're in a circle, whether that's your living room or your kitchen or somebody else's house or here at the church, always make sure that there's an open chair. Every night or every time the group meets, it's a surprise sometimes. You never know who's going to show up. Now, you also know, hopefully, or in time will, know the size of group that you can handle. And if you're at 12, or if you're at 3 and that's all you can do, then just know that. But if you're at 3 and you have 4, it's not really a big deal. Just always leave a chair open for whoever God decides to bring to your meeting. So if you're okay with that, that's something we encourage you to remain flexible on. Here's the next question. Do you have a plan in place for personal growth and reflection? If you are on top of your game spiritually, if you are abiding in Christ, as John 15 says, read the whole chapter. John 15. And while you're at it, if you keep going, read John 14 to John 17 for the most beautiful chapters in the whole Bible. But John 15 talks about abiding in Christ, how we are a part of the vine. Jesus is the vine, the Father is the gardener, the husbandman, and we're the branches. And if you are abiding in Christ, do you have a personal plan? And it can be as simple as this. Yes, I read the Bible and I spend time in prayer and I practice these certain spiritual disciplines and I try to grow in my money management. Do you have a plan in place for personal growth? Any leader that is going to make it in the long term is going to have some kind of plan of growth in place. And if you don't have one, it's not a deal breaker for us necessarily. We just want to encourage you to look into that. And if you need some help, we've got some incredible tools that can really put your path out before you nice and straight. And we'd love to help in that way. But don't let it be a deal breaker if you don't have a plan in place for personal growth. But it is something that we're going to try to help outfit you with the tools that you need in time. We're going to have group leader huddles every quarter right now that we want you to make, if at all possible. It needs to be one of those meetings to where I don't necessarily want to record them because I want you to be there in person. And we won't make it every month at this point. I believe in times past, when Phil was here, a friend of mine actually, when he was a small group pastor, had the group leaders meeting once a quarter. And that's what we'll keep it at for now. We don't want to overwhelm you, but we do want to give you an environment where you get to come around and talk to other leaders that are in another group. And we're going to give you some questions when you get together and work in small groups yourself and give you some training on, hey, here's a different scenario or here's a different thing you can try. How are you doing? How can we help? Those are what those huddles are going to be. And they're essential. We want you, if you're a group leader, to be a part of the huddles 90% of the time, if you can. And if you can't be a part of the huddles, that's probably where I will ask you to reconsider. We don't want anybody out there flying around and not having the help that we put out together. It's just a great way to cause confusion, and we just want to avoid that if at all possible. So make this a consideration. If you want to be your group leader, just know that as your director, I want you to be there at every huddle if you possibly can. It's an essential part of our deal. I'll be flexible on other things, but that one, it's going to be really hard for me to budge on. Another question, the last two, is have you thought about childcare for your group? This is a big deal for groups. If you have young couples or single moms or single parents or grandparents with a grandkid in tow, are you going to have what you need to take care of that? And I'm not going to give you all the answers right now, but I want you to consider that as a part of your plan. Is the host where you're going to have your group, if it's in your home or someone else's or here at the church, is there a plan in place for what you'll do with the kids if they do show up? So if you want to make your group say no kids, that's fine. We can say, hey, this isn't a group that's conducive for childcare, and just cut it off. Don't come away from that option too quickly. I know that's immediately whoa, I didn't know about the kids. And just they're a part of life. And if you remember in the Gospels, Jesus just treated children with not just respect, but with a gleeful adoration. He wanted them to be in his presence. And of course, you need to draw boundaries up if kids are in place and make sure that they're taken care of. If they're not, they can take over and you'll never have any decent quality fellowship. But don't close the door on the possibility of having childcare. Just think through, what is that going to look like for you? I've got some options available that we can talk more about in conversation if that's the way that you should choose. But just know that don't let that be a deal breaker, and have a plan in place if you're open to having children in your groups. The last one is this: are you faithful? Are you a faithful person? Can you stick with something for at least 18 months? Because that's what we're asking you to do. It doesn't seem like the trial run. And we could, honestly, we've thought about it, and I'm not completely opposed to the idea of having a test run just to have the first group experience based on a sermon series. That's it. There's a start and there's a stop, and you meet and then you don't. You take a break. And you don't secretly invite the three others back that you really liked. The group goes away for a little bit, at least for one sermon series. And then we'll talk again and put a group together for 18 months. And we want you to commit to it. People need consistent faces, and that's part of leadership. It's a big part of leadership, is being faithful, showing up on time, being ready to go. If you're not, if you don't have the margin in your life to do that, we don't want to add to the stress. Life is stressful as is, and we want this to be a fulfilling ministry for you, although it does involve some work. Not a ton, but it does. You're going to need to devote some time to this weekly before anybody shows up. So let us be a help to you. Know that there's nobody else in the church at Eastside right now that is really going to cheer you on outside of Pastor Fred and the staff. We want this to really be a great experience for you. So pray about being a leader, and don't let any of these questions scare you away. Just make it a part of your prayer time with God and really seek Him. Say, Lord, do you want me to be a group leader? And help me to consider these questions. And we're going to all be better off because of it, whether you choose to do it, whether you just choose to be a host. That's another option as well. A lot of times you don't have to lead. You can host. You can open up your home and have somebody else lead. And I actually encourage that, is if you're going to be off-site especially, a lot of people, a lot of leaders can do both. That's not most people. And even if you think you can, the more you can free yourself up as a leader is the more you free yourself, free the other person up to just host, to just get the house ready. And if there's food, to have that ready to go, to make sure everything's out and the bathrooms are clean. And you as the leader, you just get to show up, and the host has already taken care of everything, and you get to lead and just fellowship and be a part of that. So we want to make this a reality. We know and are certain that you're going to see lives changed, including your own. I hope we have a string of really good conversations about helping God really do something in your life, in your leadership, that maybe before you didn't see possible. And we want to be front row spectators to that and be involved in it. So reach out to us and let us know if there's anything we can do to get you connected to being a group leader.